the table, tried to steady both my hands. He asked me why I looked so distant. I said I'm doing all the hurting I can stand. He waited for my voice to tremble, but I'd grown stronger through the years. I used to break at every moment. Now I speak truths I once buried under fear. My last promise wasn't spoken loud, just a vow I made to guard my heart again. My last promise made me proud to walk away before I lost myself to him. I wore the ring he gave me proudly, even when the meaning slipped with time. But loving him kept shrinking pieces of the woman that I used to call mine. My last promise wasn't spoken loud, not a plea to make him see what he let fade. My last promise cleared the cloud of waiting for a love he never chose to say. I didn't raise my voice or tremble, didn't beg the way I once might have done. There comes a day when quiet strength outweighs the fear of living on my own. My last promise wasn't spoken loud, but he heard it when I took my final breath of calm. My last promise stands unbowed, to leave with dignity and carry myself on strong. And as I stepped out into the morning air, I finally felt a life that could belong to me. Set his supper on the table, just like any other night. He said he wasn't hungry, and that alone didn't sit right. He spoke a little shorter lately, like every word cost him too much. I tried to reach across the moment, but he barely noticed my touch. I bled quietly in ways he never saw, giving pieces of myself to keep us whole. I bled quietly while he built up walls, trying to love a man who wouldn't let it show. The dishes slowly, listened to footsteps fading down the hall. He didn't slam a single door, but somehow that silence hurt most of all. I bled quietly in ways he never saw, holding on to hopes he stopped holding to. I bled quietly, though I knew the cost, trying to save a love he'd already walked through. Maybe he thought I'd never notice the way his warmth thinned day by day. But hearts know when they're losing what they kept safe for far too long away. I bled quietly in ways he never saw, staying strong where he had stepped aside. I bled quietly, but I'm learning now you can't heal someone who never wants to try. So tonight I breathe a little deeper and keep what's left of me in my own hands. To fill my mornings with stories from the week, but lately all his answers have grown quiet, soft and brief. I tried to start a conversation, asked him how his long day went. He nodded once and looked away, like each word felt too heavy to spend. He spoke less as I held on, listening for the man I used to know. He spoke less and the space grew strong between the places where our love would go. I made his supper like I always do, set his plate where he should sit. He thanked me in a quiet tone, but his smile didn't seem to fit. He spoke less as I held on, trying to understand what slipped away. He spoke less and the nights grew long, with all the things he never tried to say. I learned you can't keep waiting for a heart that's drifting out of reach. Sometimes silence tells a truth that words could never teach. He spoke less as I held on, until holding on felt lonely and unkind. He spoke less and my strength grew strong, enough to leave the quiet far behind. And as I shut the door this morning, I carried what he couldn't give in time. My voice, my hope, and a life that's finally mine. sat down quiet at the table, not the way he used to be. His hands were steady but distant, like they'd forgotten how to reach for me. I asked him if he felt tired. He said, no, just thinking tonight. But the way he looked past my shoulder told me something wasn't sitting right. He closed first, long before the door shut, and pieces of himself I used to know. He closed first, and I felt it more than any goodbye he might someday let show. He used to talk about everything, even the smallest parts of his day. Now silence fills the spaces where his stories used to stay. He closed first, long before the door, pulling back in ways I couldn't understand. He closed first, and my heart got sore, trying to hold a love slipping through my hands. I tried to open gently, the way a soft word can sometimes heal, but he kept his answer shorter, like he was guarding what he didn't want to feel. He closed first, long before the door, and I'm learning to stand where he won't see. He closed first, and I know the score. You can't keep someone who stopped keeping you and me. Still I leave the porch light shining for the part of him that used to come home. He sat down at the table with a sigh he didn't try to hide. I asked him what was on his mind. He said, don't worry, I'm just tired tonight. But people don't change tone for nothing, and love doesn't shrink without a sign. He spoke in short, uneasy phrases, the kind that say more than any line. I heard enough to know he's gone, even if he's sitting right here still. I heard enough to carry on, because love shouldn't hurt just standing still. He said he didn't mean to wander, didn't know just what he felt, but apologies that come so slowly can show a heart already somewhere else. I heard enough know he's gone, even while he tried to make it sound small. I heard enough to carry on, because I won't keep begging for a love that won't call. I used to hold my breath around him, trying not to make things worse, but the truth lands soft and certain when a promise stops matching its words. I heard enough to know he's gone, and I won't break the way I did before. I heard enough to walk alone, because staying shouldn't hurt me anymore. And as I pick up my old suitcase, I finally hear something stronger, my own voice telling me to go. Set his suitcase by the doorway, folded everything he left behind. He asked her if she'd be alright. She said, I've been alright for quite some time. He looked around for some reaction, waiting for tears she wouldn't show. But she just wiped the counter gently, like she'd already learned to let him go. She didn't beg, not a single word, no reaching out for what had slipped away. She didn't beg, though leaving still hurt. She just chose her pride and walked the honest way. He thought she'd crumble like before when she fought so hard to keep them whole. But something quite changed inside her, a softer strength he never tried to know. She didn't beg, not a single word, no trembling hands asking him to stay. She didn't beg, though the truth still burned. She knew love shouldn't fade this slow each day. There's a limit to the trying, a moment when the heart stands still, and she'd reach that line in silence where choosing herself took all her will. She didn't beg, not a single word, because she'd given more than he ever knew. She didn't beg, though her vision blurred. She walked out steady, strong enough to start anew. And the house felt lighter when she closed the door. For the first time in years, it finally felt hers. my way. He brushed right past with quiet footsteps, like he'd already lived another day. I tried to start a conversation, asked him how his long week felt. He gave a nod without much meaning, and I held back the tears I'd learned to melt. No more asking for a love that won't return. No more waiting for a heart that won't unfold. No more asking when it's clear he's done. I'm choosing strength in ways I've never told. I cleaned the room we used to share, placed his coat where it belongs. Funny how a simple moment can show you when the trying's gone. No more asking for a love that won't return. No more bending just to make things right. No more asking, now it's my turn to walk ahead instead of holding tight. I've poured my heart into forgiving, waited longer than I knew I should. But loving someone who won't listen can break the part of you that meant the most good. No more asking for a love that won't return. He's made it clear in every quiet day. No more asking, now I've finally learned I deserve a voice he never let me say. So I'll pack my hope and walk on steady. For once I'm leaving on my own terms. He came home quite late last night, hung his coat without a word. I asked him how his day had been, but his answer barely reached the room. I tried to talk the way we used to, soft and steady, taking time. But he just nodded with a tired smile, like he wasn't sure how to meet me halfway. Love won't stay when we stop trying. It slips through days we overlook. Love won't stay if we keep lying, pretending everything's the same as it once felt. Breakfast cooled beside his chair. He left early without finishing much. watched him go down the old front steps, wondering when our hearts stop matching pace. Love won't stay when we stop trying. It slips through days we overlook. Love won't stay if we keep lying, pretending everything's the same as it once felt. I still keep the picture on the dresser, the one where he held me close and proud. Some days it feels like someone else's story, but I'm not ready to let it go tonight. Love won't stay when we stop trying, and I can feel it drifting far from home. Love won't stay, but I keep fighting, hoping he remembers how we learned to hold on. Maybe tomorrow he'll sit a little longer, and maybe love can find its way back in. His shirt was missing from the pile, a quiet sign I tried not to read through. He's been coming home much later, talking less with every day. And though he never says what's wrong, I can feel him slowly pulling away. Still wearing his ring, though the shine's grown thin, holding on to vows he's forgotten how to keep. Still wearing his ring, though he wanders again, trying to believe our promises run deep. The neighbors ask if we're alright. I smile and say we're doing fine, but when I set 2 plates at supper, I'm the only one that waits on time. Still wearing his ring, though the shine's grown thin, choosing hope in places he stopped looking for. Still wearing his ring, though he wanders again, wishing he'd remember who he once loved more. I keep the photograph on the dresser, the one where he swore he'd stay. Some nights I trace the edges softly, wondering when that promise slipped away. Still wearing his ring, though the shine's grown thin, and I'm learning what it costs to stay this strong. Still Till then I'll hold my quiet space and the ring he placed on my hand. I waited up with all the lights low, listening for his steps again. The clock kept moving past the hours where love once felt like it could depend. He walked in quiet in the morning, didn't try to meet my eyes. I asked him if he needed something. He just muttered, "Please don't start tonight." He slept elsewhere while I stayed here, holding on to vows he let go first. He slept elsewhere year after year, and I kept hoping loyalty could heal the hurt. I laid his shirt across the dresser, the one he used to wear with pride. Funny how a simple piece of cotton can remind you what you lost inside. He slept elsewhere while I stayed here, trying to fix a home he wouldn't fight for. He slept elsewhere, and it's now so clear you can't save love that won't walk through the door. I forgive him more than I should have, held my tears behind a steady face. But even strength has its ending, and even loyalty needs a resting place. He slept elsewhere while I stayed here, but tonight I'm packing what belongs to me. He slept elsewhere, but my heart's sincere. I'm choosing a future where I can finally breathe. And as I close the door behind me, I take back the love I once begged him to see.